Curtis and I have talked about this a lot in the last few years. And I don't think there's a really, like, it's going to come back to your context at the end of the day. But we were just talking about a double inflated wall for his future greenhouse on his property, which is off grid. And so $150 doesn't seem like very much money. But if you translate that to kilowatt hours, $150 in Alberta nets out to about 1,500 to 3,000 kilowatt hours per year. Now, to generate that, if you assume an average of 4 hours of solar energy per day on your array, I'll just on an annualized basis. So let's just use 3,000 divided by 4. That's 750 kilowatts divided by 365. So in order for Curtis to be able to run a double poly wall on his off-grid homestead, he's going to need an additional 2 to 3 kilowatts of solar capacity. That's just the solar. That's not the batteries. And so
per day.
Well, that's the size of the array. So if you need 10 for your house, you're going to need 2 just to keep your greenhouse inflated. So that's 2,000 watts. And on the average, this is just for the solar, not the batteries. You're going to need, that's going to cost an extra $6,000 in just solar infrastructure just to run that tiny little bathroom fan. That doesn't include the batteries, which might cost another $1,000 to $2,000. So,
because that's got to run at nighttime as well, right?
Yeah, so you've got to collect enough energy to keep a battery topped up just to run that fan. And so the question that I always come back to is like, in mechanical engineering, we look at something called coefficient of performance. So how much energy am I putting in and how much energy am I getting out? So if I'm putting in 3,000 units of energy on an annualized basis, but I'm only getting 1,000 units out as a result of that, then there's no point in doing it. And so for me, it always comes back down to, there's a couple of things: energy invested, ongoing energy invested, and then whether it's intrinsically safe. And so engineers, as most people know, are kind of risk adverse. And so if we're talking about an off-grid situation, but even like where I live, I'm not off-grid, I'm on-grid. We get 3 to 4 feet of snow per year. And we have regular power outages, even though we're on grid. And so if we end up with a massive snowfall and my fan dies, and I end up with 1 foot or 1.5 feet of snow on top of my poly, and if the poly doesn't fail, now I've got this huge load on my trusses that I have to think about. And so we have to think very carefully about how we're going to manage the snow load in certain climates. And I know, I think in your new location that you have a significantly higher snow regime than Kelowna. And so that's going to be something that you have to consider.
Yeah. So far, it's not too bad, but yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll see what happens over the course of the winter. But I mean, if it's like anyways, so there's kind of 3 different options. And now looking at how my polycarbonate is shedding, we've had about 1 foot of snow already out here. I don't think I would use solar wrap even in this climate, because I just don't think that the roughness of the material is such that it will not allow the snow to rapidly shed. And so for me, that's a really big deal when I'm designing in my climate. I do understand, it's funny when we get into cost and stuff. I had a guy on my YouTube channel the other day tell me that I was full of beans because when he looked at the cost of the greenhouse that I just designed, that he'd never be able to justify. He amortized it over 20 years, and he said it would be, with a 20-year amortization, it would be roughly $235 a month for my greenhouse over 20 years. He says, there's no way I could grow $200 of food in that greenhouse.
What?
So for me, it's like, well, okay, maybe you're just a crappy gardener, but
yeah,
I'm not
absolutely
doing it to save money, because the food that all 3 of us grow is not available in a grocery store, first of all.
Yeah.
Like the nutrient density is so much higher. The taste is so much better. For me anyways, I'll speak for myself. I do it for insurance. Like for
absolutely.
me, that I want to be able to grow food in a variety of different scenarios. So I'm willing to put the kind of money in